Welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shively, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and I'm on a 1 million pound mission. Now, I've personally lost over 100 pounds, and I've applied what I've learned from my own transformation journey to help my hometown clients lose over 35,000 pounds in just 5 years. Now I'm on a mission to produce over 1 million pounds of results by delivering my best weekly tips, motivation, inspirational stories, and transformation strategies so that you can gain clarity about what you need to do to reach your goals and give you the confidence to take action. And the perfect time to start taking action is right now. So let's do this. This episode is sponsored by my free 14-day Hello Abs starter course. Just head on over to my website, www.transformationcoach.me, and get signed up for free. I've got a 7-day done-for-you meal plan, 14 days of 10-minute body weight follow-along workouts, and plenty of daily motivation and inspiration to get you going. So head on over to the website, transformationcoach.me, and sign up for free. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Million Pound Mission Podcast. It's your buddy Adam, the PhD, the previously heavy dude. How's it going out there? I'm fired up about this one. It's episode number 93, Ignite Your Growth with Justin Schenck. Justin is a good friend of mine. He's my podcast coach and mentor and all this podcasting. You can definitely see a huge uplift in my podcasting game since I've been working with Justin. So I was so excited to sit him down and pick his brain on how he started the Growth Now Movement and the Growth Now Movement podcast and what he's learned from interviewing so many experts and just influencers and industry leaders across the board. So this was very, very exciting. We dove deep on a couple topics and Justin delivered. He rocked this interview. So without further ado, here's the master interviewer, Justin Schenck. Justin, my friend, welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. How are we doing today?
Adam, I'm doing great, man. I am extremely excited to be on your show. I've been on a number of other shows, but this one gets me amped up, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. And I've talked about how we have a podcasting coach-apprentice relationship, and you've really steered this show into a new direction. So I'm so psyched to bring you on and have you tell your story, because I know you don't get to tell it as much as, you know, you've become this master interviewer and you help other people get their stories out there. So I'm really interested to see where this goes. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. So with all of our leaders that we bring on this, all the influencers, anybody that steps up, and especially with you, like you've created a movement, the Growth Now movement. There's got to be a story behind that. So let's start off and kind of introduce you and your story through how you got to starting this movement.
Yeah, man. So, you know, it's kind of a long story. So it's not one of those things where it's like one day, like, oh, I'm going to get into self-help and I'm going to start a podcast. But, you know, it goes way back. I mean, when I was 19, I worked in a direct sales company and I did really, really well and became a manager with the company. And one day, one of my employees came up to me and he said, you know, Justin, I didn't make a ton of money this summer, but because of you, I'm a much greater person. You know, I know how to go after my goals. I know how to achieve the things I really want to achieve. And right then and there, I knew that that's the kind of the direction I wanted to go in my life. Did I know how I was going to do that? I had no idea, but I knew I wanted to help people reach their goals right there in that moment. And, you know, kind of almost that like that idea of like, wow, here's my purpose. And I got it at such a young age. But again, it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. And I started a couple of different businesses and they failed. And, you know, that typical entrepreneurial story. And I had a company with a business partner. I don't even remember the year, probably 2008, somewhere around there. And what we did was we put together seminars and expos that focused on personal and professional growth. Again, self-help. How do I help people get to where they want to go? And it was going really, really well for about 2 years. And we decided to put together a large business expo. We paid a speaker a lot of money to come speak. We spent a ton of money on advertising. We literally spent every single dime we had saved from this company and put it back into it. And at the end of the day, we ended up selling 3 tickets to the event. So, yeah. So needless to say, it really closed the doors on that company. And what had happened at that point was we still both had day jobs at the time, and I did really well with my job and got promotions, and he did really well with his job and got promotions. And so life kind of took over at that point. And so, that entrepreneurial dream kind of fizzled a little bit. But for years after that, people were saying, hey, are you guys still doing that thing? Are you still doing that thing? And we're just like, no, no, no. And then, his name's Zach, by the way, and he's still a really good friend of mine. And him and I got together one day and said, hey, clearly we resonated with people. How can we put something out into the world that we're kind of feel like we're fulfilling, our purpose in life to help others? And so that was the Growth Now movement was born, and we launched back in March of 2016 at this point. So we're coming up on 2 years, and, it's been a ride, man. And we can get more into details, but that's really the kind of like the build up launch to on the business side of what Justin is and how the podcast was launched.
So there were a couple of interesting things I made note of there, Justin. You are pretty tenacious with your dream. It sounds like you've locked in on this purpose, and you've known that is kind of the center point that you want to build your life around, your career. So what kind of got you through? Like, a lot of people give up once that door gets slammed for the first time, they'll give up. But so why didn't you kept going until you found the right fit, which is your podcast. But what kept you going through those hard times?
Yeah, man. It's a burning desire inside of me to help others because, I've been on the personal side of my life. I've been through a lot of struggles. And what I say to people when I speak on a stage is I say I'm the least likely to succeed. I had a 1.7 GPA my junior year of high school. And it's not because I'm dumb. It's because I didn't really, dive in. I make a joke and say my books the last day of school look brand new because I never opened them. And a lot of that is because of, the choices my parents made, and I allowed it to affect me at that point. So my dad spent some time in jail. My mom battled a 20-year opioid addiction because she didn't like herself, and she battled depression and all these things. And so my driving force was a couple things. A, I want to make my family proud because they are loving people, even though they've made their own choices and they weren't the best. But also I wanted to make them proud. And I found that every rock bottom that I've experienced in life has pushed me to be even better than the things I've experienced. And so, my dad going to jail really forced me to choose a different path in life. It forced me to not go to college and forced me to, choose an entrepreneurial path. My mom actually passed away. She lost her battle of a 20-year opioid addiction in November 2015. It was actually the same weekend that I was away recording the original intro to the podcast. So I went away and I decided to kind of plan the podcast. And that same weekend that I recorded the original intro to the podcast, my mom ended up passing away and losing her battle. And so most people even at that point would say, hey, I want to give up and I want to stop doing what I'm passionate about, because you get depressed, you get sad, you do all these things. And for me, it's more of a driving force of like, wow, life handed me this, and now I need to find the reason behind it. And the only way you can do that is by stepping forward and stepping into the next big thing. And for me, it happened to be podcasting. And so I think the main thing that I've decided in life is that my rock bottoms are my driving force, hence the Growth Now movement. Why I do the podcast and why I focus on those things is because that's been my driving force to achieve goals, to impact others, and to reach the next level.
That's amazing. I've never fully heard your story like that before. That's incredible. We both have a common friend in Coach Cav. We both are fans and friends of Coach Cav. And when I interviewed him, he talked about the higher the hurdle, the greater the reward on the other side. And it seems like and that's where growth is. I always constantly try to remind myself, whether things are going good or whether things are going bad, like this too shall pass, and it seems like you've really found that, okay, I may be going through a rough patch right now, but that, like you said, can fuel the growth. The growth is on the other side of that, and then improvement is on the other side of that. And there's a reason behind it. So I find that just fascinating with your story. I mean, you are the quintessential example of a comeback kid, and you got the deck stacked against you in a lot of ways, and you just keep driving forward. So that's why you're kicking some ass right now. So you have, like I said, you're a master interviewer. Like, you rock at interviewing people, and you have big name people on your show and just destroy the interviews. You do a great job with it. And
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like you're saying all these nice things, and like being on the other end, like I feel like I can't interject, but thank you. I mean, everything you're saying is super kind. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. It's weird being on the other side of the interview, Mr. Justin Schenck. So what I wanted to pick your brain on what some of the biggest takeaways you've had from all these superstars, celebrities, just amazing, inspiring people. What are a few of the things that you've pulled away and maybe implement in your life, or that you think people should be implementing from my audience?
Yeah, I think, I'll start with the idea that everybody has their rock bottom and everybody has their story, right? And so I think sometimes when we're feeling down in life, we feel like we're alone, and we feel like we're the only one going through these hardships of some kind, and we feel like there's no hope. And what I've realized interviewing some of the most incredible people like Rock Thomas, who had 19 failed businesses, and Fabio Viviani, who became a millionaire then lost it all because he had to bail out his family, or all these other people who you look at them now and you go, wow, they have it all together. And what I realized was, no, they've all had the same types of rock bottoms. They've all experienced hardships. And it's really been about persistence and understanding that you're not going to stay at your bottom. And the only way you're not going to stay there is by making a choice to step above it. And so all of them have really, really had that persistence in life, and to not allow a no or a failure to dictate who they become. And for me, it's and what I've experienced from the people that I've interviewed is it's a choice, right? So we can choose to live in our shit, and we can say, hey, here's where we are, and that's who I am, and that's what defines me. Or we can make a decision to step forward and become better than that. And, going back to the story with my mom, there's so many examples of people whose parents were addicts of some kind, whether it's an alcoholic, or drug addict. And then they literally live the same path because that's all they've seen. But all we can do is make a choice to be better than that. And every single person that I have interviewed, every single one, there's not been one person that I haven't interviewed that hasn't hit some sort of rock bottom. But they made a decision to say, that's not going to define me. I just interviewed a guy last night who says that there's no such thing as failure. All that there is success. And he goes, and I've been somebody who's filed bankruptcy. I've had my car repoed, but I've never had failure, because he decided to make it a learning experience. And he decided that he was going to learn from the things that happened to him. And now he's a millionaire, and he coaches people to become millionaires in his life. But it's really a mindset, and they all have the mindset of, this is not the end for me, and I'm going to make a decision today to move forward.
That's something that I love about your show, and that's why I subscribe and listen to the Growth Now movement every week, and everybody that's listening should also do that, FYI. So the thing I like about the show is that you bring on these big names, and you bring it home, you bring it closer to the average Joe, that average person. And just like you said, you explain, you don't even do the explaining. You ask the question to get them to explain their rock bottom moment. And that just brings it home for me. Like, oh, like that person inspired me already, but to know that they have tough days just like me, and how they've overcome that, dude, that's where the gold is. That's why I get the most out of your show, because you're doing that, you're creating that environment. So yeah, 100%. That's the main takeaway that I definitely have had from your show. So I'm glad that that's one of your main takeaways as well. So as you've interviewed all these people, are you picking out any common traits or habits or anything that we could apply? Like, do they have like a secret ritual that tends to pop up a lot, or like, we're looking for like the inside scoop here, Justin. So what do you notice that tends to pop up a lot as far as traits, habits, things like that we could apply directly?
Yeah. So a question that I ask most of them, I didn't ask this every single episode, but most of them I say, what's your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success? Now, all of their definitions are completely different. But a lot of them, what I've found in the rituals, which are also completely different, which could be reading, meditation, working out, writing down goals, right? Being grateful and writing down what the things you're grateful for. But what I realized in all of those things, I must take care of self, right? I must make sure that my cup is full so I can then fill other people's cups. Now, I've realized with all of these people, they're not selfish. None of them are selfish with their time or their money or their efforts, but they need to make sure they take care of self first. And that was a big learning thing for me when I started the podcast, and it still is today, because I'm very much a giver. Like, I give and give and give and give and give, and sometimes I wear myself out and I exhaust myself because I've run out of things to give. But I still want to give. And so what I've learned from these people who are ultra successful is that self is first. And that's not a selfish thing. I think a lot of times people go, like, I'm last because if I do myself first, then I'm being selfish. But the key is you need to be full of energy and life and have the resources to be able to give to other people. And the only way to do that is to take care of self first. And so, really their habits and their rituals are all about themselves. And then everything else they do is about other people.
Yeah. And that's something that I've kind of preached to my audience about, is that especially parents, they tend to, or parents, entrepreneurs, business owners, that's all very similar things. If you're an entrepreneur, your business is your baby. And we tend to put ourselves last. And like, I've got a tool that I created called the lifestyle audit. I'll actually put it in the show notes in case anybody wants to check it out. But it's all about, I have people map out all their hours of the day throughout the week and what they're averaging per day with work, sleep, personal growth, time with their family, time alone, me time, meditation, all that stuff. And it almost always makes people cry, because if they're a parent, they realize that they're spending like 10 times more time each week on their business than they are with their kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that is an eye opener. But investing some time in us is a big, big deal. Go ahead.
On that point, something I actually just learned from a guest, which I'll share here, which is the perfect segue. So he rated the top 7 most important things in his life, right? So what's number 1 through 7? And he had said, myself, my health, family, the love of my life. And he was like, I still haven't found her. So if she's out there, just put it out there. She'll be on this list.
Right.
And then he said, my business, and went through 1 through 7. And at the end of every single day, he evaluates where he is and how he feels about all of these things. And then what he is lacking, he then invests more time in. So family is number 2 or 3 on his list. And he goes, well, family is super important. If I feel I didn't give to them as much as I should have that month, I'll reevaluate and say, how do I give more next month? And I thought that was really key as far as keeping yourself on track by making sure you're scoring yourself on how you're giving into those important aspects of your life.
Yeah. And just the accountability factor. Like, we have to set up processes or systems to be accountable for taking care of ourselves. Like, the way I do it is I have a journal that I use morning and night, and I have to make some notes, and there are things that I check off, and there are certain tasks that are mainly about investing in me where I have to check off exercise, meditation, mobility work, reading, journaling. And I check off those 5 things. I know that I've had a pretty damn good day no matter what else has happened. And I try to book those things as early as possible. And that's, booking things like that is weird for people. Like, they're like, I don't want to schedule my journaling time. I'm like, well, if you don't, it might not happen. So we've got to get it done. Have you ever read or heard of the book, The Miracle Morning?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, and I have a funny story about that. So go ahead, and then I'll tell you a funny story about it.
So, that book was a game changer for me, because it helped me figure out about just schedule. It doesn't have to be an hour every morning or 2 hours every morning. It can be as little as just a few minutes. So I started doing that, like 5 minutes. I woke up 5 minutes earlier. I'd do a minute of journaling, a minute of reading, a minute of meditation, a minute of exercise, and a minute of stretching. And then I built up from there. Now it's like an hour. So sometimes people get intimidated, but that book's a great launch point to just kind of get some you time going. So, all right, I'm ready for the story. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So really quick about, making sure you do the important things first. I was talking to this girl, Kylie, the other day, and she had said this quote to me: if I had to get a frog every day or else I'd die, I would do it as soon as I got up. So you need to view those things as that important, right? So like, if I don't do these first, I will die, or I won't achieve my goals, or whatever the case may be. And the Miracle Morning is something that I practice in my own way. I don't follow it exactly how Hal wrote it out. But here's the funny story about the Miracle Morning. When I was 19 years old, I told you I worked for a direct sales company. That direct sales company is Cutco Knives. And Hal Elrod is famously known as one of the top sales reps in the history of Cutco Knives. Wow. And I got tied into his circle of people. And he was running a early morning conference call, and I got on the conference call to learn about Hal Elrod and his brand new idea. And about halfway through the conference call, he talks about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I hung up the phone because I was like, my ass is not waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
That's awesome.
I was on the first ever conference call that introduced the Miracle Morning to the world.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
And you hung up.
And I hung up. and I relate this back a lot of times. I've told this story in the past, and I relate this back. Like, there's moments in your life when you're ready for things and when you're not ready for things. And that's okay. When I was 19 years old, I wasn't ready for that. Right. If the podcast had started 3 years ago, and then now the podcast company that I help other people launch podcasts, if that happened 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready for it. Life needs to hand you the things as you go along to get you ready for whatever life is going to give you in a positive way. And I think the bad things that happened to me in my life has prepared me for the idea. Now I wake up prepared. And now I do these other things. And so I wasn't ready at 19. And so a lot of people kick themselves, damn, I should have stayed on that call. But I wasn't ready for it. And I think it's really important to be prepared for the things that life is setting you up for. And you have to be intentional with those things. And at that point, I didn't understand that.
I think it all comes back to what you mentioned earlier, is accepting a learning experience and moving forward with that new knowledge. Like, I have screwed up enough for 100 people, whether it's with business or with fitness. And we all know podcasting. I've played many mistakes, but not anymore now that you're leading the way for me. But it's, Tony Robbins talks about there's no such thing as failure as long as you learn. And that's just something that you mentioned. And I think that we can all apply that, where we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in those missed opportunities, but it's not a totally missed opportunity if we actually learn and take that knowledge moving forward. So I'm 100% on board with what you said there. It's just so powerful that you can move forward in a positive direction and build momentum and not beat ourselves up. That's the deal. That's the big takeaway there for me. Okay, so you ask a question in your show to every person that you interview. So I thought it'd be fun to turn that around on you. So this is the question. It's along these lines. So what has been your defining moment of growth in your life so far?
So the question I ask is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth? And I think that's the only thing that I could spout out so easily, because I've said it so many times at this point. But for me, it was also the worst moment of my life. It was my rock bottom, and that's when my mom died. It was very unexpected because of her 20-year pill addiction. And when I say 20-year pill addiction, there were times where my mom was taking 30 Oxycontins a day. That's something I take one and I would fall asleep, right? And so, she was taking 30 a day. And what had ended up happening was, again, your $1 Million Pound Mission, my mom has had gastric bypass surgery as well in her lifetime. And that paired with, 30 Oxycontins or half a bottle of ibuprofen in a day tore away at her stomach lining, and she bled internally. And I was, like I said, I was up in Cape Cod on vacation recording the intro to the podcast, and I got that call or that text nobody wants to read or hear it, and it said, "The doctor says you need to come." And it was a 7.5-hour drive back to where my mom was in the hospital. And I got there about 1:30 in the morning. And I walked into the room, and there she was with tubes down her throat, hooked up to all these machines. And it's a sight that I don't wish upon anybody. Nobody wants to see that. She was only 59 years old, still young and still vibrant and still full of life. And, it was a defining moment for me. And, I said to my mom, in that moment when I had my alone time with her, and I fully believe at this point that they can hear you, because she hung on and she waited for me. And I said what I had to say, and that was, "Mom, because of you, I've become a good man, and I'm going to continue to be a good man. And I know you've been through a lot of pain in your life. And if you need to let go, please let go." And I walked out of the room because I didn't want to be in the room. And about 10 minutes after I said that to her, she was gone. Wow. Still hooked up to the machines. Still, the machines that were supposed to keep her alive were no longer keeping her alive. And she made a decision in that moment to let go. And I believe that she's in a better place now. And you can believe whatever you want to believe, but I believe she's in a better place now. But in that moment, I made a decision that this can either define me and it can destroy me, or it can define me and build me up to be an even bigger and better man. And the podcast is not the greatest thing that I've done in my life. The greatest thing that I've done in my life is I made a decision to be an active listener and to help others achieve their goals. And I do that in so many different ways. And that could be as simple as, hey, I'm a shoulder to cry on and you need me to listen to what you're going through. And it's in a non-judgmental way, and I want to help you get to wherever it is. I want to give you the tools you need to be a better person. And I wasn't like that before my mom passed away. I was insensitive. I was brash. I wasn't as caring. It was really that rock bottom moment that made me shift into the man that I am today at 33 years old. Because when you experience things like that, you realize life is really short and you don't know when it's going to end. And you kind of ask yourself, what legacy do I want to leave behind? And my legacy is, yes, I have a ton of people that listen to my podcast every single day, but my legacy is the fact that I want to make sure that the people I come in contact with, no matter who they are, whether it's, to steal something, whether they're the janitor or the CEO, I want to leave them a better person than before they met me. And that's all because that's what my mom gave to the world. My mom, although she hated herself, was a light to everybody else. And these are things I didn't realize until it was too late. I take that rock bottom moment and I go, this is what defines me. And that was my biggest moment of growth, was the decision that this needs to make me a better person. These experiences in life need to make me a better person. And so that was my defining moment. That was my moment of growth. Look, I'm sure that 20 years from now, I'll have a different moment of growth, and that's okay. We're all going to experience many, many, many quote unquote rock bottoms, through our life, but we need to make a decision to have that improve us. And I didn't make the decision for it to improve me right away. I hit that rock bottom. I mean, this is called the 1,000,000 Mission. I used to weigh 212 pounds and I got down to 170. And when my mom passed away, I quickly gained back 15 pounds. And that was through drinking and eating whatever I wanted and burying my feelings and escaping my sadness through that. So it wasn't an immediate win. It wasn't like immediately I'm going to make this decision, but it was because of that rock bottom that I made the decision to say, I'm not going to allow this to affect me anymore. And so that's my biggest moment of growth.
Wow. What an amazing story, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's it makes sense. I think a great example is when we first met. We're just standing in line, Summit of Greatness. We bump into each other, and I heard you talking about podcasting, and I my radar is always open for podcasts. It's like, hey, I podcast, and you're like, wow, we should connect. I'd love to help you out. And since that moment, like 3.5 months ago, that's all you've been doing. You've just been giving and helping and providing introductions, and anybody I introduce you to, you're like, yeah, let's connect. I'd love to help. So now it all kind of comes home. You can tell that from your biggest moment of growth, you did decide to move forward with your own mission, and you represent your mom, you represent your own legacy very well. And I think that that's why you're able to lead this movement that we call the Growth Now movement. And so it all is crystal clear right now, my friend. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's say, I like to ask this question of a lot of my guests. And since we're kind of in this area already, let's say that I've got somebody out there, and I'm going to put a little twist on it this time. Let's say there's somebody in my audience that's struggling with not feeling like their family's supporting them. And they're struggling because they want to get healthy. They want to lose some weight, but maybe a family member or a friend is kind of bringing them down. They're not helpful. They're not supportive. And they're kind of at that point where they need to make a decision whether they're going to move forward and just go for it no matter what, or they're going to let that kind of bring them down and they're going to fall back into their old ways. So what would you say to that person to kind of coach them through the moment, to get them into action and get some positive momentum going?
Yeah. I mean, I firmly believe that we are the only people who have control over where we're going in our life. Right. We have a decision to say, I'm going to control this, or I'm going to allow other people to control this. And I would almost reverse engineer it and say, the last day of your life, would you rather look back and say, I chose the life I wanted to lead, or I allowed others to choose the life that I led? It is all about that one step at a time. I think so often we think to ourselves, oh my gosh, if I do this, what happens at the end? What's going to happen? Am I going to lose my friends? Am I going to fail? Are people going to laugh at me? Am I going to fall on my face when I'm working out? Whatever the case may be, right? But all we have to worry about is right now. Stop allowing the what ifs to control what you're doing today, right? So all we can do is make that next right step. And I say that all the time, the next right step. It's something that I throw out there. It's not even from me. It's from somebody else. It's a book my sister read. I didn't even read it. She said that to me and I'm like, wow, that really resonates with me. Like, make that next right step. And it's not always the easiest one, right? But all we have to do is make a decision today and every single day to grow a little bit. I live off the premise of grow 1% every single day. Sounds easy, right? If I do 10 push-ups today, let's do 11 tomorrow. So those little wins and those little growths are all I care about, are those little steps forward. And so I would say to this person, don't worry about your friend or your friends or your family and what they think. All that matters is you. And all that matters is choosing happiness. And if where you are right now is not happiness, you need to get out of there, whether that's leaving somebody behind or not. Look, I didn't talk to my dad for 7.5 years.
Wow.
It was not an easy decision to make. And it wasn't, my dad's a great man, right? But he wasn't always. And him and I have now rekindled that. I was the best man at his wedding and all that exciting stuff. But the thing is, I made a decision one day at 18 years old that I wasn't going to talk to him for however long. I decided I was never going to talk to him again. And 7.5 years later, I talked to him. But if it wasn't, and I said this to him not that long ago, a couple months ago, I was like, look, am I sad that I missed some life together? Absolutely. But if it weren't for those 7.5 years, our relationship wouldn't be as strong as it is today. So imagine if you disconnect from that friend who's holding you back and you go live your dream, and then you inspire that friend to then go live their dream. And then you reconnect as two stronger people. That'd be pretty freaking amazing, right? So you can't always worry about the end result because you don't know what it's going to be. You just have to make the next right step today and right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now.
Dude, I love it. I love it. And that's a vibe that I put out there a lot with our audience. And we talk about making the next best choice. It's the same thing. Like the next decision that's in front of you, let's make that a good one. Let's do our best. Do our best in the moment. So, man, I am on board with what you're saying, and it's so interesting. We've had a lot of conversations, and it's usually about podcasting and business and stuff like that. But it's so interesting. The more I hear about your story, the more everything you tell me just makes sense. I'm like, this is why he is the way he is. So this is awesome, man. So you've got some serious momentum going with your show, The Growth Now Movement, and I'm excited because I know you give me hope, because I know that you are a regular guy like me. Like you're not a celebrity that has this multi-million-dollar brand and you launch a podcast and of course it goes crazy. You are grassroots, digging in, making this happen, on your own and really doing an amazing job. So what's happening next? Like what's next for the Growth Now Movement? What do you got cooking? Give me a little preview.
For me, the Growth Now Movement is much bigger than just the podcast. So, I do some speaking, and in 2018, I plan to speak even more across the country and talk. I talk on my personal story, but I also talk on podcasting, right? So how do you use podcasting to build a platform, or how do you get yourself as a guest on a podcast? And these are things that I kind of introduce to audiences. So in 2018, I plan to up that a whole lot to reach as many people as I possibly can. But for me, more than anything, man, and I still look at the podcast as this, even though it's grown a big following, I still look at the podcast as a way for me to improve myself every single day. Like you have to think about the amazing people that you and I get to talk to every single day, and how can I learn and how do I better myself, right? The nice part about what I'm doing is that it's a skill that I'm able to teach other people. So in 2018, I also plan on growing my podcast production and coaching company. And I'm looking to bring on people now to really help them build that platform and reach the goals that they want to reach. But for me, it's all about intention, right? I don't want to talk to people who go, I want to build a platform so I'm a celebrity, or I want to build a platform so I can make a ton of money. For me, it's, hey, I want to build a platform because I feel like I have a message to say to the world. And I want to be able to do that in this amazing media they call podcasting. And those are the people I choose to work with. And so in 2018, for me, it's more happiness and more growth and just more excitement towards reaching as many people as I possibly can. And I'd like to do that more face to face than through a microphone and a screen. So that's really the goal for the Growth Now Movement in 2018. That's
exciting, man. That's exciting. We'll keep our audience posted on your travels and adventures too. And if any of you guys follow me on Instagram at transformationcoach.me, I'm always sharing out Justin's best stuff. So I can definitely plug you in there. And one of the things that I've learned from you through your podcast coaching is to not be afraid to ask that famous person or that celebrity, or to reach out. Was, what's the harm? And then, they might not say anything. They might say no, but they might say yes. And I've found that people say yes, and it's just cool as hell, because I've got to interview some really, really interesting people that I look up to, like authors and coaches and people in the health and fitness sphere. And I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be having a conversation with these people and, asking them, like, these are people that charge thousands of dollars an hour for consulting, and I get to pick their brain for an hour. That's crazy. It's the PhD from Bloomington, Indiana. I get to pick their brains, but it's so cool. And you've given me a lot of hope in that space. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about this year for my show, and just watching you kind of lead by example. It gives me a lot of hope. So I greatly appreciate that. Now, I want to make sure that people can connect to you, get plugged into your show. What's the best way? Let's talk websites and social media. How can people follow you and your story?
Yeah, man. So obviously they can subscribe to the podcast wherever they listen. It's Growth Now Movement, whether it's on, iTunes or Podbean or Spotify, whatever. Just click that subscribe button. And it's funny because it's easy to brag about your podcast, because it's a lot of, you're really kind of bragging on other people. Like, it's not necessarily you that you're bragging on. So I guarantee you that there's content that you'll take away every single week. So check that out. Any of the social medias, GNM podcast. So that's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, so don't even follow me on Twitter. Doesn't matter. Instagram and Facebook's really the best place to find me. And if you're interested in podcasting at all, go over to beginpodcastingnow.com. And fill out a form for a free consultation with me. And I am not afraid to tell you that you shouldn't be a podcaster. So just go fill it out and see if that's something that you're interested in, and we'll see if we can work together.
Yeah, and I highly recommend you guys, like, if you do feel like you have a message burning inside of you, not like Justin said, like, it shouldn't be like, I want to be famous, I want to make a bunch of money off of selling people's stuff. It's if you feel like you have a message inside of you, and it's just a burning desire to be open to the opportunity and the idea of podcasting, and check out his website and see what you think. Because it's been a game changer for me. I grew up being a pretty shy kid growing up, believe it or not. And I never would have dreamed, like, put myself out there like this and just talking about whatever in the open, or going live on Facebook and talking about whatever right there. But it's very, it kind of fuels my fire daily now to be able to know that my message is out there and it's connecting and it's making an impact. And Justin's played a huge part in that. So, Justin, I know that, I want to be respectful of your time, but I just want to take a second and say thank you and acknowledge you, not only for helping me, but for helping so many people with your show. It's so inspiring. You're bringing some of the best stories out there, the most inspirational stories to the table for people to listen to and then learn from, and then apply and take action and really, truly grow. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing your story and opening up like I've never heard you open up before with my audience.
Adam, thank you for having me, man. And thank you for being the model coaching client, because you put in the work, man. Like, I may, turn you this way or this way by a couple degrees and say, try this, but you are the one putting in the work, man. And it shows. And this show is absolutely amazing. And you're really impacting the lives of many people. And I can't wait till we confirm that you've reached that 1 million pound goal, and this can be the 1 billion pound mission. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well, but that's the next step. And I'm excited for it, man.
We're going to go straight to the cajillion pound mission, Justin. So, I'm into making up words, so that's how it's going to roll out. But man, I appreciate you, brother. And to everybody out there, like I do with every interview I do, I want you to take one thing and take action in the next 24 hours. What is that one thing going to be? If you want to make it super, super simple, subscribe to the Growth Now Movement podcast, listen to a few episodes. I tell you guys to do my subscribe for 5 challenge. Let's do that for the Growth Now Movement podcast. I want you to subscribe, listen to at least 5 episodes. I guarantee you'll be lit up on fire by at least one of them, if not all of them, probably all of them. But there's going to be at least one that just connects, and you're like, I relate to that person, and if they can do it, I can do it. So that's your homework. That's your action step in the next 24 hours. And that's how we get out there. That's how we own it. Every meal, every workout, every day. I will see you on the next episode. All right, I've got one quick question before you take off. Have you taken on my Subscribe for 5 challenge yet? If not, here's how it works. If I've been able to add any value to you with this episode or inspire you with the content, I want you to hit the subscribe button and give me 5 episodes. Listen to 5 episodes, and if you aren't inspired, then I get fired. All right, so you can unsubscribe, no harm, no foul, no hurt feelings by me. But I think that you're going to love the content. You're going to love the 3 shows per week that we're putting out there. So subscribe for 5, get inspired, get fired up, and get better results.